Hi there friends! So today I'm starting a brand new build series. It's going to be over this lovely Umbreon Night design by Sunset Dragon on Instagram. I absolutely love it. I love all of the moon details and how gold it is, and obviously I really like the bodice. The bodice was actually kind of what drew me to it. I was like, oh, that's really fun, and I thought that the bodice needed a video on its own. So here it is. I'm obsessed with the fabric on it. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm really proud of how it came out, honestly. I've only made a handful of corsets before, and this one was made from a modified historical pattern, which I will have linked into the description. It's a free pattern, which is awesome. It has spiral steel and flat steel boning in it, and it just feels like really good, and when I wear it, it feels absolutely amazing. So let's just go into how I made this. So first I started out with this half boned full length stays pattern, which is free on ralphpink.com. It's like a fresh lawn. I don't know why lawn was the first thing that came to mind. It's just so poofy. Once they were printed out, I cut them and threw them onto my mock-up fabric, which is a similar weight as my official fabric. I did some adjusting to the pattern before cutting out the mock-up fabric. I then cut out the fabric and I pinned it all together. After I pinned it onto my dress form, I marked out the adjustments I was going to make to the bodice while looking at a reference photo, and then I cut it out. I basically just changed the way that the front is shaped, and then I lopped off the shoulder straps and I shortened it quite a bit. Once I cut it to the proper shapes, I ironed out my lining fabric and I pinned the mock-up onto my lining fabric. After I cut out my lining fabric, I start pinning the seams together and then I sew them. Once all the seams are sewed together, I zigzag stitch the outside of the lining to keep the fabric from fraying. I pinned down all of the boning channels. I used a satin ribbon for this, and I followed the original boning channel guide from the pattern, but I did take a few out due to how I changed the pattern a bit. I just sewed the edges of the ribbon onto the lining, making sure to sew as close to the ribbon edge as possible so the boning will fit into the channel. Once the lining was prepared, I ironed my official fabric, which is this really beautiful iridescent purple silk Dupioni. I have worked several times with this fabric before and I really like it. Make sure when you're placing your pattern pieces for your bodice, you double check the grain of the fabric. I don't want an incident like I did last year where I made a silk Dupioni fat bodice and I had to cut out all the fabric pieces twice because I didn't check the direction of the slubs, so they were all there were lines going in all sorts of different directions and it did not look good. Anyway, so I prepared the official fabric the same way as I did the lining. I just didn't put in the boning channels in the official fabric. Once all of the panels were sewn together, I pinned the right side of the lining to the right side of the official fabric. I pinned around all of the edges except for the top. I will leave this open so I can slip the boning into the channels. Next, I just sewed around where I pinned. Once sewed, I flipped the bodice right side out and then I top stitched around the entire thing except for the top. Next, I can start putting in the boning. I chose flat steel bones for the areas around the eyelets where there will be a lot of straining due to the lacing. And spiral steel boning everywhere else, especially around the curves. It makes it very comfortable to wear because it curves with your body and it moves with you. The spiral steel boning came with these little caps, and I used those caps for the flat steel boning as well to keep from poking through the fabric. Once all the boning was in, I pinned where they were and I sewed them all down. Also, I only broke one needle, which is absolutely wonderful. I'm very proud of myself for only breaking one. When I say I am sewing them down, I am sewing as close as possible to each boning, so on each side of the boning all the way up the bodice. And it fits very nicely, and like I said, it's very comfortable too. And now it's on to the outside trim. I use this pleather gold trim. I learned how to do corners, which you can kind of see how I did it here. Basically, I sewed 2 pieces of the trim together into a V shape, and then I folded the side of it. Outside corners were kind of the same, but the V was the other way, and then I pushed it basically right side out. Anyway, it was a giant pain in the ass to do this, but I did that all the way around the entire bodice. I pinned it and I sewed it down. It took like at least a day of like finagling everything around, but the end result is awesome. I think it's very beautiful. I love the gold against the purple. Next, I marked out where the eyelets will go using the pattern as a template. I used my fabric punch to punch out the holes, and then I used these gold eyelets. I originally was going to sew the eyelets to be historically accurate, but I actually hated how that looked with the gold trim, so I stuck with the metal eyelets. The reference has a thin black string in the bodice, so I did the same. I used a black leather string to lace this. I wanted to change one thing about this costume, and that was to add a modesty panel, partially because I feel like it completes the bodice, and also it hides the ribbon for Umbreon's tail. So I just cut a rectangle, sewed it together, flipped it right side out, top stitch it, and then I sewed it to the bodice, and that's it. That's how I made the bodice. I guess I can show you how the bodice goes on, because I'm feeling nice. Look at all my plants. I haven't shown them in a while. Look at all of them. I have so many friends over there. There's also another shirt that goes underneath of this. It doesn't look like this, but I didn't feel like putting it on. The modesty panel just kind of floats in here. You can always add buttons. You can add little snap buttons onto there to hold it a little bit more, or Velcro. But I just didn't put anything. I'm just letting it float around in there because it's fine. And then I like to tuck the laces, like the bow underneath. And then, yeah, that's that. Obviously, the pants I have come up to like here. They're like super high-waisted, so you're not gonna see my skin. And then the tail pokes out back here. But yeah, that's that. I just realized this was untucked. Just ignore that. I never said I was a good cosplayer. I just make stuff. There. Fixed. Thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out with me. Hopefully it was somewhat informative. I'm still not super confident on how to make corsets. Like, I'm not a professional whatsoever. I am a costume maker. I'm learning still. So yeah, I learned a lot from this, and if you like costuming stuff or making cosplays, then feel free to subscribe. Again, I'm going through this entire build, so there will be like a series type thing that I commonly do on my channel. So if you are interested in seeing how I built the entirety of this, then yeah, go ahead and follow and stuff, and we have fun here. And I have a cat who's behind me. She's sleeping. Yeah, thanks again for hanging out, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.